Good day everyone. Today, I will be discussing the self from anthropological perspective. This is for educational use only. Our group grants permission for our instructor, Mr. Roldan Ardinis, to use this as educational material. Of the self as a private, eternal thing, anthropology teaches us that the self is actually a cultural construction. To understand this, we have to look at two main learning objectives: how the self is conceptualized and how these views compare across different human societies. Conceptualizing the self. First, let's look at how anthropologists see the self. Unlike philosophy, which focuses on the mind, anthropology focuses on culture. Like Clifford Geertz argue that the human are unfinished. This means we are born without a fixed identity, and it is our culture that finishes us. We use a cultural toolkit, our language, our religions, and our traditions to build. We generally divide these conceptualizations into two categories. First, the egocentric self, common in Western culture. The self is seen as a capable, independent individual separate from others. The sociocentric self, common in many Eastern and indigenous culture. The self is context dependent. You are just defined by your relationship to your family, your ancestor, and your comparing community. And contrast. Let's compare this. The highest contrast lies in the boundaries of the self. In philosophy, Western thought, the self is often seen as autonomous. We believe our identity stays the same whether we are at home or at anthropology. We see the self as a relational. In many cultures, personhood is not something you are born with. It is something you earn through social rituals and rites. A key thinker is Marcel Mauss. He made a brilliant distinction that helped us compare these views. He called basic sense of identity the moi. This is the me every human feels. But he called the society identity the person me. This is the character or the role that society expects us to play. As what am I? Anthropology asks how does my society tell me who I am allowed to be. The anthropological perspective shows that the self is not a fixed biological fact. It is a process. It is a dialogue between our internal thoughts and the external world we live in. We are not just selves, we are cultural beings.
My name is Andre Tobias, and I'm gonna discuss about the self and person contemporary anthropology. Sees the self and person as culturally. In contemporary anthropology, the self and the person are understood as social and cultural constructions, rather than natural or universal intensity constructed, not universal or fixed. Personhood is shaped by social relationship cultural norms, and life stages. Anthropologists argue that ideas about identify individually and personhood differ across society and are shaped by culture, social relationship, history, and power. The person is not always viewed as an independent, autonomous individual. In many cultures, personhood is relational, meaning that a person is defined through connections with family, community, and social rules.
So, good day everyone, my name is Sabando Germerans Alfeche, and today I'll be explaining the self-implicit or implicit self. So, what is self-implicit or implicit self? It refers to the parts of our self-conception that are unconscious or automatic. These are attitudes, feelings, and associations about ourselves that influence behavior without conscious awareness. So, how it works? The implicit works automatically and quickly. It develops from repeated experiences, cultural influences, and early learning. Even if a person is not consciously thinking about it, the implicit self can affect reactions, emotions, and behavior. So this is the example video of how it works. Unlike the explicit self, the implicit self is harder to control or change. It's because it operates below consciousness or awareness. So, like for example, a person may say they are confident. We say explicit self, but when asked to speak in public, they feel very nervous and avoid eye contact. This action can make from the implicit self, which holds unconscious feelings of insecurity. And another example is when someone automatically feels proud when seeing their own name or picture, even without consciously thinking about it. This shows an implicit positive association with the self. So, in a comparison summary, the explicit self is conscious, intentional, and verbally expressed. The implicit self is unconscious, automatic, and revealed through behavior and emotional reactions. Both work together and influence how a person thinks, feels, and acts. So, in conclusion, the explicit self is and implicit self are two important aspects of self-identity. Because why? The self-explicit represent that we know and say about ourselves, while the implicit self what we feel and believe unconsciously, although they may sometimes differ, but both play a crucial role in shaping our behavior and personality. By understanding these two concepts, we gain deeper insights into why people may act differ from what they consciously claim or believe about themselves. So that's all everyone. Thank you for listening.
So good day everyone, I am Kevin Rivera. So today I'll be discussing the self as embedded culture. Clifford Geertz, 1973, an American anthropologist who offers a reformulation of the concept of culture which favors a symbolic interpretative model of culture. He defines culture as a system of inherited conceptions expressed in symbolic forms by means of which people communicate, perpetuate, and develop their knowledge about and attitudes towards life. He proposes that it's necessary that humans give meanings to their experiences so that order in the world can be established. Geertz agrees with Max Weber that man is an animal suspended in webs of significance he himself has spun, in which those webs are perceived to be symbolic of culture. Geertz attempt to illustrate an accurate image of man, so he suggested these two important ideas. 1. Culture should not perceive only as complexes of concrete behavior patterns, customs, usages, traditions, habit clusters, as has by and large been the case up to now, but as a set of control mechanism, plans, receives, rules, instructions for the governing behavior.
I am Cadet by Michael Everson. Today, I will discussing the second important idea of Clifford Geertz. The second important idea of Clifford Geertz. Man is precisely the animal most desperately dependent upon such as the genetic outside the skin control mechanism such cultural programs for ordering his behavior. Before, man is defined by his genetic potential shaped into actual accomplishments which is made possible by culture. Geertz also emphasizes that human nature is independent with culture without mean no culture, certainly but equally and more significantly without culture no mean. Humans rely heavily on culture to know how to live unlike animals that most follow instincts. People need learned rules, values, and traditions to guide their actions. These cultural instructions come from outside the body, family, society, school, and community. Humans are born with natural abilities and potential, but these do not automatically develop on their own. Culture helps shape and develop those abilities into real skills, behavior, and identity. 2012. Consider human beings as cultural animals as they create the meanings of objects, persons, behaviors, emotions, and events, and behave in accordance with meanings they can assume to be true. Every aspect of their lives is filled with meaning, and if they share the meanings impose on their experiences, they are operating within the same culture. Culture differences exist with groups of people assign different meanings to different life events and things. Hence, the self is embedded in culture. Humans are cultural animals. This means we don't just react to the world automatically. We give meaning to everything around us, like objects, people, actions, feelings, and events. We didn't act based on those meanings, not just on instinct. Because of this, every part of our life has meaning when people share the same meanings. For example, what is polite, important, or disrespectful? They belong to the same culture. Cultural differences happen when different groups give different meanings to the same things or events. What is normal or valuable in one culture may not be the same in another.
Presentation and feedbacking refers to the process of experiencing one entity, thoughts, and experiences, and the receiving response from others. Presentation involves sharing how the self is shaped by culture through space, behavior, or formal activities like reports and discussion. Feedback includes comments, reaction, and evaluation from others, which help individuals understand how they perceive in society. In anthropology, the process shows and continuously shaped through interaction with others. Let's say, for example, when a student presents how culture influences their personality, feedback from classmates and the teachers prevent their self-understanding.
Good day everyone. My name is JM Kabantogan. This is my explanation about sociocentric self. On the other hand, refers to a person who focuses more on others in the community. They value relationships, cooperation, and social harmony. Sociocentric individuals often consider how their action will affect family, friends, and society before making decisions. They tend to think in terms of we instead of me, and they prioritize belongingness and group responsibility. So this is the keywords of Socio-centric self, community, cooperation, relationship, social harmony, we, mindset, teamwork, empathy, responsibility, belongingness, and consideration for others. This is the example of socio-centric self. Example, a student asks the group members which topic they prefer for a project and chooses one that everyone agrees on so the whole team succeed together.
Hey everyone, my name is Kyle Hisim. My topic is about egocentric self. Egocentric self refers to a person who is mostly focused on themselves, including their own needs, feelings, and opinions. An egocentric person often believes that their ideas are the best and may struggle to understand or consider the perspective of others. They usually prioritize personal goals, independence, and self-interest, which means they often make decisions based on what will benefit them the most rather than thinking about it may affect other people. Thank you.